What if your wedding was a declaration of power? A political chess move and a dazzling spectacle all rolled into one. What if millions of modern dollars were spent on a single dress, a single feast, or a parade that shut down an entire city? Step back into a time when royal weddings weren't just about love, but about legacy from the 12th to the 16th centuries. Number 11. Eleanor of Aquitaine to Louis VII of France. 1137. When Eleanor of Aquitaine, the most desired heiress in all of Europe, wed Louis VII, the young King of France. In 1137, it was a union that sent shockwaves across the continent. At just 15 years old, Eleanor had inherited the vast and wealthy Duchy of Aquitaine, a territory larger than the King of France's own domain. This marriage was not merely a romantic pairing. It was a colossal acquisition, a strategic masterpiece that promised to double the French king's lands and immense revenues. The wedding took place in Bordeaux, the capital of Aquitaine, a deliberate choice to symbolize the new territories now under French suzerainty. The young King Louis himself traveled from Paris to Bordeaux, a journey that in itself was a grand procession, trotting the might of the French crown even before the nuptials. Eleanor, already known for her intelligence and beauty, and as the richest woman in Europe, wore a gown of unparalleled splendor. It is said she favored crimson, and this gown would have been crafted from the finest silk, possibly imported from Byzantium or the burgeoning silk centers of Italy. Imagine the fabric shimmering with every movement, heavily embroidered with golden lions, the heraldic emblem of her powerful family, each stitch a testament to her immense wealth. Rubies deep as claret, wine, and sapphires, the color of the deepest ocean, would have been intricately woven into the fabric, catching the light and dazzling all who beheld them. Her famously long and beautiful hair, a distinctive feature, would have been adorned with a jeweled coronet, signifying her new status as Queen of France. The ceremony itself was held in the magnificent Bordeaux Cathedral, a grand edifice worthy of such a monumental occasion. The cathedral's vast interior was transformed into a breathtaking spectacle of medieval opulence. Priceless tapestries depicting heroic deeds and mythical beasts hung from the walls, their vibrant colors softening the ancient stone. The altar, the focal point of the sacred rites, gleamed with gold and silver liturgical objects, chalices encrusted with gems, and crosses that caught the light of thousands upon thousands of beeswax candles. The air, heavy with the scent of incense and melting wax, buzzed with the hushed excitement of an assembly of unparalleled importance. The guest list was a gathering of the medieval elite. The independent and often rebellious nobility of Aquitaine stood alongside the formidable French court, a potent mix of powerful dukes, counts, and barons, all in their finest attire, their jewels and rich furs gleaming. High-ranking clergy, robed in exquisite vestments, added to the solemn grandeur of the ceremony. The vows exchanged under the soaring arches of the cathedral were not just personal promises, but a declaration of the new political landscape of France. Following the ceremony, the wedding feast commenced. A banquet fit for a king and the wealthiest duchess the continent had ever seen. The tables groaned under the weight of an unimaginable quantity and variety of food. Roasted meats of every kind, venison, wild boar, pheasants, were presented alongside an array of exotic birds, like peacocks and swans, their feathers reattached for dramatic, lifelike display. Freshwater and saltwater fish caught fresh and delivered swiftly lay on silver platters beside an abundance of seasonal and imported fruits. Spices, expensive and rare, brought from the distant lands of the East, would have infused every dish with a fragrant complexity. Wines, particularly the rich full-bodied vintages from Eleanor's own Bordeaux vineyards, flowed freely, served in goblets of polished silver and sometimes gold. The entertainment at the feast was as lavish as the meal itself. Troubadours native to Eleanor's Aquitaine and famed for their lyrical poetry and music serenaded the guests with tales of chivalry and courtly love. Minstrels played lutes, harps, and flutes, their melodies weaving through the chatter and laughter. Jesters, with their witty banter and acrobatic feats, kept the assembly entertained. The sheer volume of people, the shimmering silks, the clinking of goblets, and the constant hum of conversation, all under the soft glow of countless candles, created an atmosphere of overwhelming splendor. This wedding, while marking a new beginning for Louis VII, was, above all, a testament to Eleanor of Aquitaine's extraordinary status, a grand display of her immense power and undeniable influence, even at such a young age. Number 10. Eleanor of Provence to Henry III of England, 1236. Eleanor of Provence, a young princess from the culturally vibrant and wealthy region of southern France, arrived in England in 1236 to marry King Henry III. Henry, known for his deep fascination with art, architecture, and lavish ceremonies, spared no expense to make his wedding a spectacle that would proclaim the prosperity and power of his kingdom. Her journey from Provence was a grand procession, meticulously orchestrated to showcase her royal standing. She traversed France with a large retinue of Provençal and English lords, knights, and attendants. Her approach marked by a trail of anticipation. Upon her arrival in England, towns across the country from Dover to Canterbury were adorned with banners, garlands, and triumphal arches, their citizens turning out in droves to welcome their new queen. Her triumphal entry into London was an event of breathtaking scale. Capital transformed into a living tapestry of celebration. The narrow, winding streets of the city were meticulously cleaned and then draped with rich tapestries, their intricate patterns and vibrant colors swaying gently in the breeze. Flags bearing the royal standards of England and Provence fluttered from every building, alongside garlands of fresh flowers and green foliage. The livery companies, the powerful guilds of London, displayed their wealth and influence with elaborate parades and impressive banners. At various points along the processional route, citizens and actors staged elaborate pageants, featuring allegorical figures, mythical creatures, and child performers who recited welcoming verses and praised the royal union. The air was filled with the ringing of church bells, the joyful shouts of the crowds, and the distant sound of trumpets and drums signaling the approach of the royal entourage. Eleanor herself rode in a magnificent open litter, allowing the populace to glimpse their new queen. Her gown, a masterpiece of medieval fashion, was crafted from the finest silk or velvet, possibly in a deep blue or rich crimson colors, often associated with royalty. It was exquisitely embroidered with gold thread, depicting intricate floral motifs, or perhaps the lions of England and the lilies of Provence, symbolizing the new alliance. Jewels, including glittering sapphires and sparkling diamonds, would have been sewn into the fabric, catching the winter light. Her head was adorned with an elaborate coronet, possibly featuring a delicate circlet of gold studded with gems, from which a fine veil flowed. Every aspect of her attire spoke of the elegance of Provence and the wealth she brought to the English court. The ceremony was held in Westminster Abbey, a structure steeped in royal history and spiritual significance. The abbey's vast nave and choir were transformed into a sanctuary of unparalleled splendor. Rich hangings woven with gold and silver thread adorned the walls, while the altar itself gleamed with priceless liturgical objects, including a massive gold cross and jewel-encrusted reliquaries. Thousands of beeswax candles, arranged on every available surface, cast a warm, flickering glow across the assembly, their gentle scent mingling with the heavy aroma of frankincense. The service was conducted by the Archbishop of Canterbury, surrounded by an assembly of the highest-ranking English baronage, powerful bishops, and foreign envoys, all dressed in their ceremonial best, their presence emphasizing the profound political and religious significance of the union. Following the sacred rites, the celebrations moved to Westminster Hall for a legendary feast. This was no ordinary meal, but a monumental culinary and theatrical event. Hundreds of dishes were laid out on tables that groaned under their weight. Roasted game of every description, deer, wild boar, rabbit, lay alongside massive joints of beef and pork. There were dozens of varieties of fish, both freshwater and saltwater, prepared in elaborate sauces. Exotic birds such as peacocks and swans were roasted and then redressed in their plumage. For a dramatic presentation, their beaks often gilded with gold leaf. The hall itself was a spectacle, its great timbers draped with rich tapestries depicting hunting scenes and chivalric tales. The tables were laden with magnificent gold and silver plate, bowls and goblets that reflected the flickering candlelight. Throughout the feast, the entertainment was continuous. Minstrels played lutes and harps, their melodies filling the vast hall. Jesters performed their witty routines, and acrobats dazzled the guests with their feats of agility. There might have been short theatrical performances, perhaps celebrating the Union or depicting heroic tales. The sheer scale of the catering, the volume of guests, and the lavishness of the surroundings made it an event of truly immense proportions. Lavish gifts were exchanged, not only between the royal families, but also between the English and Provençal nobles, including precious jewels, intricate gold and silver objects, and fine textiles, symbolizing the new alliances. The festivities lasted for several days, extending beyond banquets to include formal receptions, and possibly even hunting parties or jousting tournament. Number 9. Blanch of Castile to Louis VIII of France, 1200. In the year 1200, a young princess from Castile, Blanch, embarked on a journey that would lead her to become Queen of France. This marriage was not merely a royal union. It was a carefully orchestrated peace treaty, meticulously arranged by none other than Blanche's formidable grandmother, Eleanor of Aquitaine, a woman legendary for her political acumen and unyielding will. Eleanor, despite her advanced age, personally escorted Blanche from Castile all the way to France, a journey that itself was a grand display of her enduring influence and the power of her lineage. The very presence of Eleanor, still a force to be reckoned with, lent immense prestige to the entire event, signaling its profound political importance. The journey of Blanche and her substantial retinue across vast territories was a remarkable undertaking. Eleanor, overseeing every detail, ensured that the traveling party was numerous and well appointed, suiting the wealth and status of both Castile and the French crown. Horses, attendants, and carriages laden with the dowry goods all traveled in a stately procession, drawing attention and wonder from the populations they passed. While the wedding itself took place at Port-Mort, a location chosen for its strategic neutrality on the border between the French and Anglo-Norman territories, rather than a grand capital, the marriage was nonetheless an indisputably royal affair. The church, though perhaps smaller than a cathedral, would have been decorated for the occasion. Its interior brightened with hangings and candles. The choice of location underscored the delicate political tensions that the marriage aimed to resolve, making the union itself the primary symbol of extravagance and ambition. Blanche's attire, befitting a Castilian princess marrying the future King of France, would have been of the finest silks, perhaps with intricate embroidery, showing Moorish influences, a reflection of the vibrant cultural exchange present in her homeland. Her gown would have been adorned with jewels from her dowry, sparkling diamonds, rubies, and emeralds, each stone a testament to the wealth of Castile. Her headwear would have been elegant, possibly a delicate circlet or a simple veil that emphasized her youth and purity. Following the sacred rites, a grand banquet was certainly held, a celebration of the new alliance. While the specific culinary details may not be as extensively chronicled as later medieval feasts, a royal wedding of this stature would have featured the best available meats, roasted venison, game birds, and substantial cuts of beef. Fine wines, perhaps, from the burgeoning vineyards of France, would have flowed freely. Entertainers, including minstrels and possibly even some early forms of jesters, would have provided amusement for the guests. The focus of this gathering was above all the profound political symbolism of the union, rather than pure material indulgence. Blanche brought a substantial dowry from Castile, a sum of money, lands, and valuable goods that was crucial for the French crown, cementing the financial and strategic benefits of the alliance. Lavish gifts would have been exchanged between the royal families, symbolizing their new familial ties and the depth of their commitment to peace. These gifts would have likely included valuable Castilian horses prized for their strength and beauty, and exquisite textiles demonstrating the craftsmanship of her homeland. The true extravagance of Blanch of Castile's wedding lay not solely in its material splendor, but in the immense diplomatic efforts and political maneuvering that surrounded it. The gathering of powerful figures from both the English and French sides, all brought together by the cunning and charisma of Eleanor of Aquitaine, represented a monumental display of influence and power. This union, overseen by one of history's most remarkable women, was a grand performance designed to bring an end to decades of bitter conflict between two of Europe's most powerful kingdoms. It was a wedding that, through its very existence, declared a new era of fragile peace, making it a monumental and costly event in the annals of medieval diplomacy. Number 8. Isabella of France to Edward II of England, 1308. In 1308, Isabella of France, a princess of remarkable beauty, and the daughter of Philip IV, the Fair, one of the most powerful monarchs in Europe, traveled to Boulogne-sur-Mer to marry Edward II, the King of England. This union was intended to be a grand gesture, a ceremonial binding of two long-standing rival kingdoms, promising peace and stability. However, even the dazzling spectacle of the wedding could not disguise the underlying tensions, particularly given Edward II's controversial character. The wedding itself took place in Boulogne-sur-Mer, a French coastal city serving as a powerful demonstration of the immense wealth and authority of the French crown. King Philip IV, Isabella's father, a monarch renowned for his administrative innovations and the sheer grandeur of his court, meticulously orchestrated much of the pomp. His intention was to impress upon the English court the formidable power of France. Isabella, as befitting a princess of France, wore a gown of breathtaking luxury. It would have been crafted from the finest French silk, perhaps in the rich, deep royal blue, so favored by the French court, heavily embroidered with the golden lilies, the iconic fleur-de-lis, the symbol of the French monarchy. Every stitch of gold thread spoke of royal lineage. Jewels, including dazzling diamonds, fiery rubies, and lustrous pearls, would have been integrated into every aspect of her attire, from her elaborate coiffure, which likely included an intricate network of braids adorned with gems, to the long, sweeping train of her gown. Her very presence was a shimmering testament to the splendor of the French court. The ceremony was held in the local church of Boulogne, transformed for the occasion. The interior would have been bedecked with lavish hangings, rich tapestries depicting biblical scenes or chivalric tales, and the finest vestments for the officiating clergy. The altar, gleaming with gold and silver objects, was illuminated by hundreds of candles, casting a soft ethereal glow. The gathering of attendees was extraordinary. King Philip IV of France, Edward II of England, and their respective courts, along with a formidable assembly of dukes, counts, and high-ranking church dignitaries. The sheer number of powerful individuals in attendance underscored the profound political significance of the union. Every noble's presence, a silent declaration of allegiance and power. Following the sacred vows, a magnificent banquet commenced, prepared by the French court, which was renowned throughout Europe for its culinary arts and lavish entertainments. The multi-course feast featured an astonishing array of dishes. Exotic meats brought from distant lands or carefully prepared game from royal forests were served on gold and silver platters. Elaborate subtleties, artistic sugar sculptures depicting allegorical scenes, mythical creatures, graced the tables, serving as both food and visual spectacle. Fine French wines from the choicest vineyards flowed ceaselessly, served in ornate goblets. The entertainment was of the highest caliber, with troubadours and minstrels performing intricate melodies, acrobats dazzling the guests with their feats, and possibly a short theatrical performance, all designed to entertain and impress the assembled royalty. Isabella brought with her a substantial dowry, a crucial contribution to the English treasury. This dowry included a significant sum of money, a collection of priceless jewels, and rights to certain French territories, which were strategically important for England. Lavish gifts were exchanged between the royal families, demonstrating their wealth and intentions. These included intricate gold and silver objects, exquisite tapestries, and precious jewels, all symbolizing the newly forged alliance. The English court was particularly keen to impress its new French queen, hoping to gain favor and stability. While the wedding itself took place on French soil, the subsequent journey of Edward and Isabella to England, and their triumphant entry into London, was marked by its own form of public extravagance. Citizens lined the streets, which were draped with banners and garlands, civic receptions, parades featuring the various guilds, and the joyous ringing of church bells greeted the royal couple, designed to welcome the new queen and celebrate the promise of peace. The entire event, from the grand procession of noble guests to the opulent feast and the exchange of lavish gifts, was a monumental display of the power of the Frenchman monarchy and a strategic. Number 7. Filipe of Hayode to Edward III of England, 1328. In 1328, the marriage of Filipe of Hayode to the young king Edward III of England marked a significant political alliance, crucial for England's future. In the volatile landscape of medieval Europe, Hayode, part of the prosperous Low Countries, was a strategic partner for Edward III, particularly as he harbored ambitions concerning the French throne. The wedding, held in York, was a deliberate display of regal splendor designed to assert Edward's authority and celebrate this vital union. Filipe's journey to England was a carefully managed royal procession, anticipated with great excitement. She arrived with a considerable retinue of Hayode nobles and attendants, signaling the importance of her family and the alliance they represented. While specific details of her arrival are less documented than later queens, the general expectation was one of welcome and celebration. The ceremony itself took place in the magnificent York Minster, one of England's most impressive cathedrals. For the occasion, the vast interior of the minster was transformed. Rich hangings and tapestries, likely depicting biblical scenes or the heraldry of the two families, adorned the ancient stone walls, adding warmth and color to the grand Gothic architecture. The altar, bathed in the light of hundreds of beeswax candles, would have gleamed with gold and silver, liturgical objects enhancing the solemnity and grandeur of the sacred rites. The sheer scale of the building, coupled with the elaborate decorations, created an awe-inspiring atmosphere. The guest list was a dazzling assembly of medieval power. A huge number of English nobles, arrayed in their finest court attire from the earls and barons to the knights, filled the minster, their rich silks, velvets, and furs, a testament to their wealth and status. Alongside them were foreign ambassadors, bearing witness to the momentous event, their presence adding an international dimension to the proceedings. The sight of such a distinguished gathering, all in their ceremonial best, created a truly dazzling spectacle, reflecting the importance of the young king and his new queen. Following the ceremony, the wedding feast commenced, an event famously opulent and recorded by chroniclers for its astonishing scale. The tables groaned under the weight of an unimaginable quantity of food. Hundreds of roasted swans, their feathers reattached for a dramatic presentation, lay alongside roasted peacocks, their iridescent plumage gleaming. Massive cuts of venison, wild boar, and other game from the royal forests were served alongside a variety of fish and poultry. Exotic spices, imported from the distant markets of the East, would have been liberally used to flavor the dishes. A sign of extreme luxury, the table settings were of the highest quality, with polished silver and gold platters and goblets enhancing the visual splendor of the banquet. Throughout the meal, minstrels played a continuous stream of music, their lutes, harps, and flutes filling the hall with melodic sounds. Jesters provided comic relief, and possibly acrobats or other entertainers performed for the amusement of the royal couple and their guests. Filipe brought a significant dowry to the marriage, a crucial financial and political asset for Edward III's burgeoning reign. This dowry included not only a substantial sum of money, but also jewels of considerable value, and potentially rights over certain territories in Hainault, which proved strategically important for Edward's future campaigns. The exchange of lavish gifts between the royal families was a standard practice, symbolizing the new alliance and solidifying familial ties. These gifts would have likely included valuable jewels, fine fabrics, and precious objects, each a testament to the wealth and power of the two houses. The celebrations extended beyond the wedding ceremony and feast. The entire city of York participated in the festivities. Processions wound through the streets, accompanied by cheering crowds. Days of jousting tournaments were held, attracting knights from across England who competed in spectacular displays of martial skill. The royal couple made frequent public appearances, solidifying their presence and popular support. This wedding, with its unparalleled feast and city-wide celebrations, was designed to cement Edward III's reign and set the stage for his long and active rule, acting as a grand display of his growing power, his ambition, and the strength of his new alliances. Number 6. Margaret of Anju to Henry VI of England, 1445. The marriage of Margaret of Anjou to Henry VI of England in 1445 was far more than a personal union. It was a desperate attempt at peace between England and France, two nations exhausted by decades of brutal conflict. Margaret, a French princess, was a key figure in this fragile diplomatic maneuver, and her arrival in England and subsequent wedding were orchestrated with immense pomp, intended to symbolize a new era of harmony. Despite the underlying tensions that would eventually lead to the Wars of the Roses, the initial celebrations were a magnificent display of regal optimism. Margaret's journey from France to England was a meticulously arranged royal procession. She was escorted by a substantial retinue of powerful English lords, dispatched specifically to honor her alongside a number of French nobles, underscoring the diplomatic significance of her passage. Her arrival on English shores was met with great fanfare. Towns along her route, including Southampton and Winchester, staged elaborate civic receptions, their citizens turning out in droves to catch a glimpse of their new queen. Streets were decorated with banners and garlands, and local dignitaries greeted her with speeches and gifts. Her entry into London was a full-blown triumphal parade, a testament to the effort put into making her welcome appear joyous and widely supported. The streets of the capital were transformed into a vibrant tableau, draped with rich tapestries depicting historical scenes or allegorical figures, and adorned with colorful banners fluttering from every window. At various points along the processional route, elaborate pageants were performed by civic guilds and groups of actors. These pageants often featured allegorical figures representing peace, justice, and prosperity, with child actors delivering welcoming verses and speeches in praise of the royal union. The sound of trumpets, drums, and cheering crowds filled the air as the royal procession made its way through the decorated city. Margaret herself would have been dressed in the opulent French fashion of the time. Her gown would have been crafted from the finest silk velvet, or rich brocade, perhaps in deep blue or crimson, intricately embroidered with pearls and gold thread. The design would have emphasized elegance and grandeur, with possibly long flowing sleeves and a wide imposing skirt. Her headwear would have been equally magnificent, reflecting her status as a French princess and soon-to-be Queen of England. This might have included a jeweled coronet or an elaborate hennin, a tall, conical hat adorned with a flowing veil and precious stones. The wedding ceremony itself was a multi-part affair, initially performed at Titchfield Abbey and later publicly confirmed with solemn grandeur. At Westminster Abbey, both locations were sumptuously decorated for the occasion. Westminster Abbey, with its soaring architecture, was adorned with rich hangings and tapestries, while the altar gleamed with precious gold and silver liturgical objects. The sacred space was illuminated by hundreds of candles, casting a warm, flickering light over the assembled dignitaries. Presence of the entire English court, alongside foreign ambassadors and the leading clergy of the realm, made it an assembly of immense importance and visual splendor. Following the sacred vows, a succession of feasts and banquets ensued, the grandest of which was held in the awe-inspiring Westminster Hall. The sheer volume and variety of food served at these banquets were staggering. Dishes included roasted game of every description, such as venison, wild boar, and various types of fowl. Exotic birds like peacocks and swans, often prepared and then redressed in their brilliant plumage, were presented as elaborate centerpieces. Subtleties, which were intricate sugar sculptures depicting allegorical scenes, castles, or heraldic devices, were a highlight, adding an artistic dimension to the culinary extravagance. Fine wines and ales flowed freely throughout the hall, served in ornate goblets and tankards. Entertainment was continuous, with musicians playing their instruments, jesters performing their witty routines, and perhaps court masks or theatrical performances being staged to amuse the royal couple and their guests. While the dowry itself involved territorial concessions from England to France, the provinces of Maine and Anju, the value of the goods brought by Margaret, including jewels, rich fabrics, and a substantial trousseau, was significant. Bonfires were lit throughout London, church bells rang continuously, and a general air of merriment pervaded the city. These public celebrations were intended to foster a sense of shared joy and national unity, signaling the beginning of a new, peaceful era. The entire celebration, from the elaborate processions to the opulent banquets, lasted for several days, encompassing numerous receptions and entertainments, all meticulously planned to underscore the significance of this fragile alliance. Number 5. Isabella of Portugal to Philip the Good, Duke of Burgundy, 1430. When Isabella of Portugal sailed to the Low Countries in 1430 to marry Philip the Good, Duke of Burgundy, it was a union that epitomized the pinnacle of late medieval courtly extravagance. Portugal sought a powerful ally, and Philip's Burgundy at its peak was not merely wealthy, it was a veritable kingdom of its own, rivaling the great monarchies of Europe in its immense riches and cultural splendor. This wedding was destined to be a legendary display of opulence, a demonstration of the Duke's unrivaled power and taste. Isabella's journey from Portugal to Bruges was an epic undertaking, a grand maritime procession that announced her arrival long before her ships docked. She sailed with a massive fleet, an armada of vessels laden not only with hundreds of attendants, knights and ladies in waiting, but also with countless horses and an unimaginable quantity of lavish dowry goods, a treasure trove of jewels, gold and fine fabrics. Her arrival in Sluys to port for Bruges was met with thunderous acclamation. Her subsequent progress through the wealthy cities of Bruges and Lille was a series of meticulously choreographed triumphal processions. The streets of these prosperous mercantile hubs were transformed, draped with rich tapestries, adorned with garlands of flowers, and lined with cheering crowds. Triumphal arches, specially constructed for the occasion, heralded her passage, and civic pageants, complete with costumed performers and allegorical displays, unfolded at every turn. Isabella's attire, fitting for a Portuguese princess marrying the wealthiest duke in Europe, was breathtaking. Her gown would have been crafted from the richest silk velvet or heavy brocade, perhaps in deep burgundy or royal blue, shimmering with intricate gold embroidery. It would have been adorned with countless pearls and precious jewels, possibly including large diamonds and rubies. Burgundian fashion at this time was known for its extreme opulence, and Isabella's dress would have been a testament to this aesthetic. Her headwear would have been equally elaborate, perhaps a towering hennin, a conical hat, adorned with a long flowing veil, and encrusted with dazzling gems, or a complex turban-like coif, intricately woven with pearls. The wedding ceremony itself was held in Bruges, a city synonymous with immense wealth and artistic patronage. The church, chosen for its grandeur, was adorned with priceless tapestries, many woven with gold and silver thread, depicting scenes of chivalry, religious narratives, or the heraldic achievements of both families. Gold and silver liturgical objects gleamed on the altar, illuminated by thousands of beeswax candles, casting a warm, rich glow throughout the sacred space. The assembly of guests was unprecedented in its magnificence. High-ranking nobles, dukes, counts, and knights from across Europe flocked to witness the union. Philip the Good, known for his love of chivalry, chose this very wedding to found his prestigious Order of the Golden Fleece, an exclusive chivalric order. The spectacle of knights being invested with their magnificent collars of gold and jewels, adorned with the iconic golden ram, added another layer of extraordinary ceremony and status to the proceedings. The celebrations extended into a series of banquets, each more elaborate and theatrical than the last. These were not simply meals, but immersive performances designed to impress and awe. Between courses, magnificent entremets were presented. Elaborate sugar sculptures and mechanical devices that transformed the dining hall into a living tableau. One famous entremet depicted a ship sailing on a mirrored table complete with miniature cannons that fired sugared almonds. The food itself was a feast for the senses. Multiple courses featuring exotic meats like roasted pheasants, venison, and wild boar, alongside a myriad of fish and poultry, all prepared with rare spices. Spiced wine served in ornate goblets flowed ceaselessly. Continuous entertainment was provided by musicians, dancers, jesters, and acrobats, ensuring that every moment was filled with wonder. Isabella's dowry was significant, though its exact monetary value is less important than the extraordinary gifts exchanged, particularly by Philip. He presented gifts that were legendary in their lavishness: priceless jewels, precious metals, crafted into exquisite objects, illuminated manuscripts adorned with gold leaf, and the finest horses, all demonstrating the Duke's boundless wealth. The festivities continued for days, with a series of elaborate tournaments and jousts, drawing knights from across Europe to compete in spectacular displays of martial prowess. The knight's armor was often highly decorated, some inlaid with gold or silver, making the jousts a visual spectacle. Prizes awarded to the victors were equally magnificent. Chroniclers of the time painstakingly detailed every aspect of Isabella's wedding, recognizing it as one of the most magnificent events of the century, a true and unforgettable demonstration of Burgundian power, unparalleled wealth, and exquisite taste. Number 4. Mary of Burgundy to Maxmilleon I, Holy Roman Emperor, 1477. In 1477, the fate of one of Europe's wealthiest and most strategically vital territories hung in the balance. Mary of Burgundy, the sole heir to the immense Burgundian lands and fortunes, was the most sought-after bride on the continent. Her marriage to Maxmilleon I of Habsburg, the future Holy Roman Emperor, was a pivotal moment, a masterful political maneuver that secured the future of the Habsburg dynasty. The wedding, held in the city of Ghent, was a grand spectacle designed to declare to the world the immense power and wealth of the newly united houses. Mary, known for her impeccable taste and love of sumptuous fashion, would have worn a gown of unparalleled richness. Descriptions from the era suggest a heavy brocade, possibly woven with threads of pure gold or silver, that shimmered with every movement. The fabric itself would have been adorned with an astonishing array of diamonds, rubies, and emeralds, each jewel meticulously sewn into intricate patterns. Her famous pearls, a legendary collection inherited from her grandmother Isabella of Portugal, would have been prominently displayed, perhaps woven into her elaborate headwear or draped around her neck. The typical Burgundian hennin, a tall conical hat, would have been adorned with a delicate veil and further encrusted with jewels, adding to her regal height and splendor. Her attire was a living testament to the vast wealth she commanded. The ceremony took place in Ghent, a city that was a jewel in the Burgundian crown, renowned for its immense prosperity and artistic output. The chosen cathedral or major church was transformed into a sanctuary of breathtaking opulence. Priceless tapestries, many woven with gold and silver threads, depicting heroic scenes, chivalric romances, or biblical narratives, hung from every wall. The altar gleamed with solid gold and silver liturgical furnishings, chalices encrusted with gems and reliquaries that shimmered under the light of thousands upon thousands of beeswax candles. The air, heavy with the scent of incense and melting wax, was vibrant with the hushed excitement of the assembled dignitaries. Maxmilleon, having traveled from Austria with a substantial retinue of Habsburg knights and nobles, made his grand entry into Ghent. Procession to the church was a magnificent display of combined power. Toucates the immense wealth of the Burgundian nobility, resplendent in their finest silks, velvets, and furs, their jewels flashing in the light. Alongside them marched the disciplined military might of the Habsburgs, their banners unfurled. Citizens of Ghent lined the streets, which were festooned with banners, garlands, and triumphal arches, all designed to welcome the royal couple and celebrate the monumental union. The wedding feast was, as expected of the Burgundian court, an extraordinary affair. Burgundian feasts were legendary for their theatricality and abundance, and this one was no exception. Multiple courses were served, featuring an array of exotic meats from roasted pheasant and venison to wild boar, all prepared with rare spices imported from distant lands. Elaborate subtleties, intricate sugar sculptures depicting allegorical scenes, mythical creatures, or the combined heraldic devices of the Habsburgs and Burgundy, graced the tables between courses, serving as both food and stunning works of art. Wines from across their vast domains, some of the finest in Europe, flowed freely, served in jeweled goblets. The entertainment was continuous, with performances by musicians, dancers, and possibly even full-blown theatrical presentations that captivated the assembled nobility. The exchange of gifts was extraordinary, reflecting the immense wealth of both parties. Jewels, precious metals, works of art, and rare furs would have been presented, each item a symbol of the profound alliance. Mary's dowry was effectively her vast inheritance itself. The rich Low Countries, Burgundy proper, and other territories, making it the most significant part of the unions, securing a colossal landmass and immense revenues for the Habsburgs. The celebrations extended for days, encompassing numerous tournaments, jousts, masked balls, and further banquets. Knights from across Europe vied for honor in the jousting lists, their armor often highly decorated, turning the martial contests into dazzling spectacles. The cities under Mary's rule, knowing the significance of the union, held their own public celebrations, lighting bonfires and ringing church bells in jubilation. The Burgundian court was a renowned center of artistic patronage, and the wedding would have been meticulously documented in illuminated manuscripts and grand portraits, further emphasizing its grandeur and ensuring its lasting legacy. Number 3. Elizabeth of York to Henry VII of England, 1486. The marriage of Elizabeth of York to Henry VII of England in 1486 was a monumental event, not just for the individuals involved, but for the very fabric of English history. It was the crucial union that finally ended the devastating Wars of the Roses, uniting the warring houses of York, Elizabeth's lineage, and Lancaster Henry's. The legitimacy of Henry VII's new Tudor dynasty hinged entirely on this marriage, making the wedding a powerful political statement and a grand celebration of peace and unification. The ceremony was held in the venerable Westminster Abbey, a deliberate and deeply symbolic choice. As the traditional site for English coronations and royal events, the Abbey itself conveyed a sense of ancient legitimacy and continuity essential for Henry's nascent reign. For the occasion, The abbey's magnificent Gothic interior was transformed. Rich cloths woven with gold and silver thread, emblazoned with heraldic devices, were draped along the walls and over the altars. The altar itself gleamed with priceless liturgical objects, including a massive gold cross and jeweled chalices, illuminated by hundreds of candles that cast a warm, flickering glow throughout the vast space. While some aspects of the wedding were kept relatively private, the procession to the abbey would have been stately and solemn, a display of unity and reconciled power. It was attended by the highest-ranking nobles of England, many of whom had recently been enemies, now dressed in their finest ceremonial attire. The presence of Elizabeth Woodville, the Queen Dowager, and Elizabeth's mother alongside other key Yorkist supporters was a crucial vivial demonstration. Following the sacred vows, the celebrations moved to Westminster Hall for a truly grand banquet, a feast designed to impress and delight. The tables stretching the length of the immense hall groaned under the weight of countless dishes, roasted game of every description. Venison, boar, swan, and peacock, often presented with their feathers reattached for dramatic effect, took pride of place. Massive joints of beef and pork, elaborate pies, and a variety of fish dishes were also served. The hall itself was splendidly decorated with rich tapestries depicting hunting scenes and chivalric tales hanging from the walls. The tables were laden with magnificent gold and silver plate bowls and goblets that reflected the flickering candlelight. Subtleties, intricate sugar sculptures that served as both dessert and artistic display were a highlight of the feast. These might have depicted the Tudor rose, a new emblem combining the white rose of York and the red rose of Lancaster. Symbolizing the union of the two houses, throughout the meal, the hall resonated with entertainment. Minstrels played lively tunes on their lutes, harps, and flutes. Jesters performed their witty routines, and sometimes more elaborate court masks or plays were performed, often with themes of peace and prosperity. The sheer volume of food and wine, the number of distinguished guests, and the quality of the entertainment were all designed to project an image of wealth, stability, and joy after years of conflict. While extensive records of specific gifts exchanged are not as detailed as some later weddings, the principle of lavish gift-giving between the royal families would have been standard practice, likely including jewels and fine. The wedding itself was presented as a profound gift to a war-weary nation, a tangible sign of reconciliation, and a promise of future stability. Beyond the courtly celebrations, the public reaction to the wedding was immense and widespread. Though not always documented in minute detail, the very fact of the wedding was celebrated throughout England as a harbinger of peace. Church bells rang out in every town and village, bonfires were lit on hillsides, and local festivities from dancing to feasting marked the joyous occasion. The union of Elizabeth and Henry, culminating in this grand wedding, was a profound act of national healing and consolidation, making it an extravagant display not just of material wealth, but of political and symbolic power that ushered in the long and prosperous Tudor era. Number 2. Catherine of Aragon to Arthur, Prince of Wales, 1501. In 1501, England witnessed a spectacle of unprecedented grandeur as Catherine of Aragon, the daughter of Ferdinand and Isabella, the formidable Catholic monarchs who had united Spain and funded Christopher Columbus, arrived to marry Arthur, Prince of Wales, heir to the English throne. This marriage was a colossal political alliance, a strategic masterpiece intended to forge a formidable Anglo-Spanish power bloc against France. Every detail of the event was meticulously planned to showcase the wealth, power, and international standing of the nascent Tudor dynasty. Catherine's journey from Spain was an epic event in itself. Her naval procession across the Bay of Biscay was a sight to behold. A fleet of Spanish and English ships, bristling with banners, and filled with her vast retinue. Her arrival in Plymouth, then her slow, magnificent progress across England to London and finally to St. Paul's Cathedral was choreographed down to the last detail. Cities and towns along her route were transformed. Triumphal arches, specially constructed and decorated with allegorical figures and heraldic emblems, spanned the main thoroughfares. Pageants were performed by local guilds and actors depicting scenes from history or mythology, all designed to welcome the royal bride and impress upon her the wealth and loyalty of her new kingdom. For the grand procession to St. Paul's Cathedral, Catherine rode in an open litter, allowing the throngs of Londoners to catch a glimpse of their future queen. Her dress was a marvel of European craftsmanship, a gown of gleaming white satin, an unusual but deeply symbolic color for the time, signifying purity and new beginnings. It was heavily embroidered with threads of spun gold and adorned with countless pearls, each meticulously sewn to form intricate patterns that shimmered under the autumn light. Her hair, as was the custom for virgins, flowed freely and was covered by a delicate veil, above which sat a magnificent jeweled circlet, sparkling with diamonds and rubies. Arthur, on horseback, rode beside her, similarly resplendent, in rich velvets and silks, adorned with jewels, a picture of youthful royalty. The procession itself was massive, a river of nobles, foreign ambassadors, high-ranking clergy and court officials, all in their ceremonial best, making their way through streets draped with rich cloths and tapestries, heralded by trumpets and drums. The wedding ceremony, a testament to the immense importance of the union, was held in the awe-inspiring St. Paul's Cathedral. The cathedral's vast interior was decorated to an unprecedented degree. Precious tapestries hung from the walls. Intricate altarpieces gleamed with gold and silver, and thousands of candles illuminated every corner, creating a luminous and solemn atmosphere. The service was conducted by the Archbishop of Canterbury, attended by the highest nobility of both England and Spain, their presence a powerful declaration of the new Anglo-Spanish alliance. Following the sacred rites, the celebrations moved to the Bishop of London's palace, where a feast of unimaginable scale and opulence awaited. This was a multi-course affair featuring hundreds of dishes. Roasted peacocks, their iridescent feathers reattached for display, lay beside swans, wild boar, and massive joints of beef and venison. Exotic fruits, spices imported from the distant Indies, and every known sweetmeat from across the continent were presented in towering pyramids. Sugar subtleties, intricate sculptures depicting castles, mythical beasts, or the combined heraldry of England and Spain adorned the tables. The sheer volume of food and the continuous flow of the finest wines brought from the vineyards of Gascony and Spain were staggering. Entertainment included elaborate masques, plays performed by court actors, and continuous dancing, all designed to delight and impress the royal guests. Catherine's dowry was immense, said to be 200,000 crowns, a staggering sum of money for the time, in addition to a vast array of goods, including priceless jewels, magnificent tapestries, and a retinue of Spanish horses. The exchange of lavish gifts between the royal families, reflecting the immense wealth of both Spain and England, further cemented the alliance. Days of jousting and tournaments followed the feast, held in custom-built arenas, complete with elaborate tents for the nobility-costumed knights and immense crowds. The thundering hooves and clashing lances were a final dramatic display of chivalry and royal power. The scale of Catherine's wedding was a deliberate and costly exercise, designed to cement the Anglo-Spanish alliance and to display the power and legitimacy of the new Tudor dynasty to all of Europe. Number 1. Anne of Brittany, to Charles VIII of France, 1491. In 1491, the marriage of Anne of Brittany to Charles VIII of France was a union born not of affection, but of brutal political necessity. Yet it was executed with a grandeur that belied its controversial. Anne, the fiercely independent Duchess of Brittany, was the last obstacle to France's complete territorial unification. She was already married by proxy to Maxmilleon I, the future Holy Roman Emperor, making Charles VIII's forced marriage a political earthquake that reverberated across Europe. Despite the underlying coercion, the French king orchestrated a wedding of immense pomp to legitimize this vital annexation. Anne's journey to Langeais, the chosen site for the wedding, was organized as a grand procession, though she traveled more as a captive queen than a willing bride. French royal officials ensured that her progress through the lands now effectively under French control was marked by ceremonial displays. She arrived with a substantial retinue, and the route was likely lined by French troops, serving simultaneously as escort and a powerful demonstration of military force. King's intention was to present a facade of joyous union to the world, masking the reality of a duchy absorbed into the French crown. Anne's gown for the ceremony, even under duress, would have been a masterpiece of late medieval couture, crafted from heavy brocade, perhaps in deep crimson or royal blue, woven with threads of pure gold. It would have shimmered with every movement. Jewels, undoubtedly from her own immense personal fortune as Duchess of Britany, would have been intricately integrated into the fabric, reflecting her vast wealth and unyielding status, even as her freedom was curtailed. The elaborate headwear, characteristic of late medieval nobility, possibly a complex jeweled cap or a richly embroidered veil, would have been adorned with countless pearls and fiery rubies, highlighting her regal bearing. The ceremony itself took place in the fortified castle of Langeais, a setting that hinted at the underlying tension. Despite the fraught circumstances, it was still undeniably a royal affair. The great hall of the castle would have been transformed for the occasion. Elaborate tapestries, many depicting heroic scenes or grand hunting parties, would have adorned the walls, their vibrant colors softening the stern stone. The altar prepared for the sacred rites would have gleamed with gold and silver objects, and the hall would have been lit by thousands of beeswax candles, casting a dazzling but perhaps unsettling glow over the proceedings. The sheer number of powerful nobles, foreign ambassadors, and clergy who were compelled to witness this event spoke volumes about its immense scale and political significance. Following the ceremony, a banquet was held, designed to impress and awe despite the palpable undercurrent of political maneuvering. Table after table groaned under the weight of an unimaginable quantity and variety of culinary offerings. Exotic meats, brought from distant lands, or carefully prepared game from royal forests, were presented alongside massive cuts of beef and pork. Roasted swans, their feathers reattached for a dramatic presentation, lay beside peacocks, gleaming with edible gold leaf. Wild boar, stuffed with herbs and fruits, took pride of place, while silver platters held pyramids of delicate pastry, intricate sugar sculptures depicting allegorical scenes. Wine, from the finest vineyards of Gascony and Burgundy, flowed like a river, served in jeweled goblets. Musicians and minstrels played continuous melodies. Jesters performed their witty routines, and acrobats dazzled the guests, creating a vibrant, if tense, atmosphere. The dowry brought by Anne was essentially the Duchy of Britany itself, a territory of immense strategic and economic value, making this the most valuable gift in history, a prize for the French crown. Beyond this colossal annexation, there would have been ceremonial gifts exchanged between the royal houses, likely including precious jewels, intricate gold and silver objects, and magnificent tapestries, all designed to symbolize the new union. While there was no joyful public procession through Paris, the assembly of the entire French court and the leading nobility at Langeais for the event was a spectacle in itself. Conspicuous display of military might surrounding the castle, serving as both security and a powerful demonstration of force, added another layer of grandeur and strategic importance to the proceedings. Anne of Brittany's wedding to Charles VIII, though a forced union, was a masterclass in political theater, a final extravagant decoration of France's territorial ambitions, performed on a stage of unparalleled royal splendor.